Okay, so I said I would put together a quick video to explain a little bit about how to go about the case studies this term. First thing I'd like to say is if you're doing a dissertation in POLS, the case study is a little bit similar to that. You've got some experience then of doing your own research project, putting something like that together, and deciding on your own research question, etc. The case study this term is a little bit like the dissertation process. So with that in mind, let me talk about a few specifics about the process of how you do the case study. These are just suggestions. You can do it any way you like. But I would say this, in my experience, the people who start thinking about the case study earlier tend to do better. I'll leave that up to you whether you take that advice or not. I'm conscious you've got a lot of the work going on and things. But in my experience, people who start thinking about the case study earlier do tend to do better with it. And I think there are very clear reasons why it is hard, as you found with the dissertation, I'm sure, to look at the world out there and decide, right, there are a million different things I could possibly have a look at. What exactly am I going to focus on? Which topic am I going to do for this particular assignment? So with that in mind, let me say 5 things, I think. First thing, when you're thinking about the case study, think about the big themes from POLS 312 this year. The course has been about a crisis, a change, the role of theory and world views, the way that we think about the world, the way that we view the world, and also the contemporary global political economy, some of the challenges and particularly this term, some of those things we're looking at this term, the rise of China, etc. These are big monumental shifts in the structure of the global economy. So think about those things, think about the big themes, and I would have those in mind when you think about the kind of case study you want to write on. Have those big themes in mind. They are broad, but they're not all-encompassing. There are some sort of dominant themes that have come out over these 2 terms. And I would add to that and say, within those themes, I would try and stay contemporary. Now, by contemporary, I think, perhaps the early 2000s up to 2016 is a good kind of frame of reference, if you like. I think I wouldn't suggest going back and doing something on the 1980s or the 1930s or even the mid-1990s is possible, but perhaps a little too early. Because, and I will say this to start with, the main criteria you're being assessed on with the case studies is some element of independent research. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll explain that in the lectures, but it's basically some research of your own, not just what other academics have had to say about this particular thing in the past. If you want to do the Great Depression, the 1930s, etc., that's fine. But to be honest, it's quite unlikely that you're going to go back and find some original new material that people haven't written about and haven't used before. That is, if you like, the kind of primary criteria for getting a good mark in this assignment. Some independent research of your own. So the first thing I'd say then is think about the big themes of the course. The second thing I'd say is to choose, to try and find some kind of topic. There are loads of people always come to me and they say, well, what sort of topic am I going to choose? What do I find interesting, etc. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the challenge for you, is to think about something that you find interesting and engaging enough to be able to do some research on and write a 3,000-word essay on. I've given people loads of tips in the past. If you think back, for example, about the kind of things, I'm assuming you read newspapers, but if you think back about what you've read in newspapers over the last year, perhaps, I can almost guarantee there are certain kinds of articles, certain kind of topic that come up in the newspapers that you think, that really interests me. There's something there that I don't know, maybe it disturbs me, maybe it makes me angry. That's the kind of stuff that I do my research on, is stuff that I think, man, that bothers me, so I want to do some research on it. But I'm sure that there'll be something like that for you too. It might be immigration, it might be, like I said, China, It might be, reform of the welfare state. It could be something really bizarre and random that you read something about. I don't know. I'll give you some examples in the lecture, but people in the past have done topics like high-end fashion. Someone wrote something last year on like sports, like polo, for example. So a variety of different things like that. But I would suggest choose a topic that you find interesting. That's the second pointer. So think of the big themes. Choose a topic that you find interesting. Number 3, once you've got a broad topic, find something there that needs explaining. You need to have a question. Some people get this, you get a little bit lost with this, with the case study. You need to have a research question, something that needs to be explained, a puzzle. So as I said before, someone did something once on luxury goods or luxury fashion. And their question was, if I remember rightly, it was something like, how is it that during a recession where people are supposed to be struggling and, struggling to make ends meet, but yet we see people spending actually more and more money on luxury fashion items. How is that? And they did a case study on that. So, but the point is simply find something that needs explaining. So think of the big themes, choose a topic, and then find something that needs explaining. And part of that third point is looking at the academic literature about that particular thing. As I've said to you last term, that doesn't necessarily have to be the IPE literature. I don't know an awful lot of IPE, narrowly defined IPE literature that talks about high-end fashion, for example. But there's a big literature out there in the business studies and marketing and all those kind of things, and other disciplines that talk about these particular things. So find a literature that will help you to frame this question, the third point. I'd suggest as well, if you're unsure about, like you've got a topic in mind but you're not sure about really what's going on with it, do some simple Google media searches as well over the last year or 2 years or whatever. See what the kind of things that are going on in the media say about this particular topic. So think about the big themes, choose a topic, find something that needs explaining, and then the fourth thing is actually write something down. Force yourself to write something down. I'm conscious, you've got a lot of other work going on, you've got dissertations to hand in, etc. But force yourself to write an opening paragraph, okay? Frame that research question and think about what your argument is going to be. Write that opening paragraph. That's point number 4. Getting lost with my fingers. That's number 4. And then number 5 is come chat to me about it, right? That's a very simple kind of point. Once you've got to that kind of stage, once you've got a sense of here's roughly the topic that I want to do, here's roughly what the debate is about, here's roughly what I think I want to argue, then come speak to me about it. Now, you may get stuck at stage 1 or stage 2, and you want to come speak to me then. Some people come to me and they say, well, I've got 5 topics, I don't know which one to do. Come speak to me then, that's fine. But at some point during this whole process, early on, come speak to me, get some advice from me about, and we can talk through, is this a good topic? How are you going to go about this? What kind of sources could you use, etc.? I would say come see me fairly early on about that. My simple note that I started with is, I'll just repeat that again, start early thinking about these case studies. People who start earlier tend to get better marks for this particular assignment. Please don't leave it till a week or 2 before the Easter holidays. I'm conscious, I know you've got lots of other stuff on, but at least think about the kind of topic, do a bit of reading, come speak to me about it in the next couple of weeks of this term. Okay.